At Megan's bridal shower, the room buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. But she couldn't find Justin.
Where is he? And why is Stephanie missing too?
The guests were oblivious, sipping mimosas and laughing. No one noticed the bride's growing dread. Megan slipped away from the crowd, her heels clicking down a quiet hallway. A door stood ajar. Through the crack, she saw her sister Stephanie draped in Justin's arms, their lips dangerously close.
This can't be real. Not my sister. Not today.
Stephanie's eyes flicked to Megan. A slow, deliberate smirk curled her lips before she turned back to Justin.
She meant for me to see this. This is her victory.
Megan retreated silently. Not a single guest noticed her pale face as she slipped out of her own party. Outside the venue, the June sun felt cold. Megan's engagement was over, but she was the only one who knew. The moment she got home, Megan called Stephanie. Her hands trembled, but her voice was ice.
What was that today, Stephanie? At my own bridal shower with my fiancé?
It wasn't what it looked like, Megan. We were just talking.
I saw your face, Stephanie. You wanted me to see. Admit it.
Maybe I did. Justin and I have a connection you never had. You were just holding him back.
The call ended. Megan stared at her phone screen, the quiet of the apartment swallowing her whole. 2 weeks passed like slow poison. Justin showed up at her door, his eyes unable to meet hers.
Megan, I can't go through with it. I'm in love with Stephanie. The engagement is off.
She didn't cry. She pulled off the ring and placed it on the coffee table between them. Justin picked up the ring and walked out. The door clicked shut and the silence returned, heavier than before. 3 months after the breakup, Megan's phone buzzed with a notification she never expected. Stephanie had posted a photo of a diamond ring. The caption read, "He said yes." Megan's breath caught below the post. Well-meaning friends had already tagged her in the comments. Her friend Claire texted, "I'm so sorry, Meg. Just saw it." Then another from Jenna, "Are you okay?" Megan typed back, "I'm fine. I wish them the best." Her fingers were steady, but her jaw was tight. She closed the messaging app and turned to her computer. Work had become her only refuge. A commercial real estate analyst, Megan scanned listings every night. That evening, a Tuscan vineyard stopped her scroll. Belvedere Estate. The description noted a September wedding date that was already booked, the same weekend as Stephanie's.
Their wedding venue. This is where they'll celebrate everything they stole from me.
Megan leaned back in her chair. A dangerous idea flickered at the edge of her mind, and she didn't push it away. The next morning, Megan dialed the number from the listing. A gruff, older voice answered on the second ring.
Mr. O'Connell? My name is Megan Reeves. I'm a commercial analyst interested in Belvedere Estate.
You're the first call I've had that didn't talk about condos. Come tomorrow. I'll show you around.
Megan arrived at Belvedere the next day. The rows of vines were still lush, but the buildings needed care. Patrick met her with a firm, weathered handshake. His eyes were kind, but shadowed with worry.
I can't keep up with the taxes, the mortgage, the repairs. A developer offered cash, but they'd tear it all down.
He needs a quick, quiet sale, and he'd rather sell to someone who preserves the estate. This is perfect. Patrick, what if I could purchase it through a holding company? Discreetly. No public record of my name.
If you promise to keep this place as a vineyard, I'd take a lower offer. I just want it to survive me.
Megan extended her hand. The deal wasn't final, but the seed of her revenge had just been planted in fertile ground. Over the following week, Megan and Patrick finalized the price. She promised to keep Belvedere a vineyard, not a development site. Megan hired a discreet attorney to form a shell LLC. Every filing was routed away from her personal name. The attorney reviewed the existing wedding contract. It transferred with the property, binding, unalterable.
They'll walk down that aisle thinking everything is perfect. They'll have no idea who really holds the deed.
She signed the purchase agreement under the LLC name. The ink dried, and Belvedere officially changed hands. The funds transferred wirelessly. Within hours, the deed was recorded under the shell company, hidden from public view.
You've saved this place, young lady. It's yours now. Keep it breathing.
I'll take good care of it, Patrick. That's a promise I intend to keep.
The attorney handed Megan a sealed folder. Inside lay the original wedding contract, untouched and ironclad. She slipped the folder into her bag. The last piece of her strategy had just locked into place. That Saturday, Megan drove to Belvedere before sunrise. The estate was hers now, every vine and stone. She walked the rows alone, her sandaled feet crunching on the gravel path. The silence felt earned.
They'll stand here in front of 100 guests and never know who owns the ground beneath their feet.
Back in her car, she pulled up the wedding website on her phone. The registry was live, filled with expensive gifts.
They're still planning the perfect day, picking cake flavors and floral arrangements, still completely oblivious.
A gallery showed their engagement photos, the happy couple superimposed over her vineyard rows.
Should I feel guilty? Patrick needed saving, and I needed this. 2 birds, 1 key.
She closed the browser and looked out at the rolling hills. No guilt came, just a cold, steady certainty. The old Megan would have cried. This Megan started the engine and drove the gravel road toward home. Every mile sharpened her focus. The wedding would happen here, and she would be the one to close the gates. A week later, Megan stopped at a downtown cafe. She saw them before they saw her. Through the glass, they were laughing over a wedding magazine, their heads bent close together. Megan slipped into a corner table outside, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses.
They look so happy, as if the last 2 years never happened.
Her coffee grew cold as she studied the couple who built their joy on her grief. When they stood to leave, Megan didn't move, she just watched them walk away. Later, in her apartment, Patrick called. His voice was heavier than usual.
That developer I mentioned? He's furious. Said he'd have leveled the entire vineyard. You saved it, Megan.
So I didn't just buy a venue. I preserved a legacy that makes this right.
She hung up and stared at the wedding contract on her desk. 1 month left. Her course was set. A month before the wedding, Megan called the venue manager. She used the LLC name, her voice steady.
This is Belvedere Estates, LLC. We'd like to continue the owner's traditional toast at the upcoming Hayes Reeves wedding.
The manager agreed without question. The toast was a charming vineyard custom, and the contract already guaranteed it. That evening, Megan drove to Belvedere for a final walkthrough. The empty reception hall echoed her footsteps. She stood at the far end, where the head table would be, and traced the path she'd walk.
1 week. In 7 days, I walk out of that kitchen and end their fairy tale.
She pulled out the guest list, scanning names. No one would connect her to the anonymous owner before the reveal. Satisfied, she folded the paper and looked toward the ceremony site. The chairs were already stacked. Megan touched the arch, the vines cool under her fingers. This place was hers, and soon they'd know it. Her phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Hayes Reeves' wedding. 7 days. She silenced it and drove home. 3 days before the wedding, Patricia Hayes called Megan. Her voice was clipped, urgent. She asked to meet at a quiet cafe.
I know you've been planning something, Megan. I don't know what, but I have something you need to see.
She slid a manila envelope across the table. A vein in her temple pulsed. Megan opened the envelope. The first glossy photo made her fingers clamp down on the paper's edge.
Justin, with the maid of honor, his mouth on hers, last Saturday night.
He cheated on Stephanie last weekend. I can't let her marry him without knowing, but I didn't know who else to tell.
This is my gift to Stephanie, a way to burn it all down before the ceremony even starts.
Patricia rose, her hand brushing Megan's shoulder. She left without another word, the cafe door chiming softly.
But my toast. 6 months of planning. If I expose him now, I become the bitter ex, not the dignified owner.
She slipped the photos back into the envelope. The weapon was loaded, but she wasn't ready to fire. Not yet. Megan drove home in silence, the envelope heavy on the passenger seat. Her apartment felt smaller tonight.
If I leak this now, the wedding is over, but I become the messenger, not the consequence.
She placed the envelope in a locked desk drawer. The key turned with a sharp, final click.
The toast is cleaner. They have to face me, exactly where they're getting married.
She looked at her reflection in the dark window. The woman staring back was no longer the one left at the bridal shower.
I'm the owner. I get to decide how this ends.
She pulled out the navy blazer she'd chosen for that day and hung it on the closet door. The garment was a suit of armor. She could almost feel the champagne flute in her hand.
3 days, then I close this chapter for good.
She set her alarm and lay in bed, her pulse calm, her mind finally quiet. At dawn, Megan parked her sedan behind the old storage barn and cut through the back vineyard path. The ceremony chairs stood in empty rows, waiting. She slipped behind a sprawling oak at the edge of the property, invisible to anyone walking down the aisle. Guests began filling the white chairs, their murmurs carrying on the warm breeze. Megan's hands stayed steady. At the altar, Justin tugged at his collar. Even from a distance, Megan could see the sweat on his brow. Then the music swelled. Stephanie appeared at the end of the aisle, her veil cascading over a blinding white dress.
Look at you, Stephanie. So beautiful, so oblivious.
The vows were standard. Justin slid the ring onto Stephanie's finger with trembling hands.
That ring should have been mine, but this ground is mine now.
The crowd clapped. Rice and flower petals scattered. Megan stayed perfectly still. As the guests migrated to the reception hall, Megan checked her watch. Her cue was in 2 hours. Megan slipped through the kitchen service entrance, a shadow among the clatter of plates and pans. In the staff locker room, she unfolded the navy blazer and stepped into the tailored armor.
This suit holds 6 months of silence. It fits better than any wedding dress.
A server handed her a chilled champagne flute, the crystal catching the overhead light.
1 drink, 1 speech, then I walk out of their story forever.
Through the swinging doors, the MC's microphone crackled. The speeches had begun.
They'll call the owner's toast soon. I'll be the shock they never calculated.
The MC's voice boomed, and now the owner's traditional toast. Megan drew a slow breath.
Steady. You've waited half a year for this. Let them see who really owns this day.
Her hand pressed against the cold kitchen door. On the other side, 100 guests waited. She pushed the door open, the reception hall's golden light swallowed her shadow, and 100 conversations died like candles. Her heels were quiet, deliberate. Every step claimed the floor as hers. At the head table, Stephanie's champagne glass paused mid-air. Recognition hit her like a slap. Justin's hand found the tablecloth, knuckles white. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Whispers ignited. The name Megan hissed through the crowd like steam from a capsized pot.
They're trying to decide what I am. A slighted ex? A gatecrasher? None of them will guess correctly.
She reached the stage. The MC, bewildered, stepped back and gestured toward the microphone. Megan faced the room, her silhouette framed by string lights and stunned silence.
6 months of waiting. Now I just open my mouth and let the truth pour.
She lifted the champagne flute, not in celebration, but in a quiet claim that was about to be spoken.
Belvedere Estate was founded 40 years ago by a man who believed in growing something beautiful from the soil. This vineyard has witnessed hundreds of unions, each one a promise made under these vines, some kept, some broken. What few know is that 6 months ago, Belvedere quietly changed hands, passing to someone who understood exactly what it represented. I am the new owner.
The room erupted into gasps and frantic whispers. A wine glass toppled, a fork clattered.
Now they see me, not as the abandoned fiancé, but as the woman who holds the deed to this entire property. I acquired it because I believe in preservation, in honoring what was meant to last beyond the whims of any one couple.
She paused, letting the silence stretch like a drawn bowstring. Every pair of eyes was pinned to her.
This is just the opening note. The real chord comes next, and it won't be gentle.
Megan's hand remained steady around the flute as she prepared to deliver the blow no one in this room had anticipated.
Effective today, Belvedere's entire event revenue from this calendar year, including this ceremony, will be donated to the Harbor Light Domestic Violence Shelter.
A collective intake of breath. Some guests looked confused, others understood exactly what this meant. Stephanie shot up from her chair, veil askew, her face a blotchy red.
This donation honors anyone who has ever been treated like an interruption in their own story.
Justin's face went ashen. His mother, Patricia, locked eyes with Megan from across the room, a subtle nod. Around the room, muted gasps turned to murmurs. A legacy couple whispered. A young cousin pulled out their phone.
To new beginnings.
She touched the flute to her lips, the champagne cool and crisp, and the room hung suspended in that single gesture. A handful of guests broke into applause, unsure if this was part of the program. Half the room still sat frozen. Stephanie screamed something Megan didn't bother to hear. The bride's composure had shattered, exactly as planned. Megan set her champagne flute on the nearest table with a soft clink. She turned her back on the head table and walked.
Don't look back. They don't deserve the satisfaction of a reaction.
The crowd parted before her, murmurs trailing like smoke. She didn't hurry. She didn't falter. Behind her, a chair screeched. Justin's voice cracked, but his own mother's hand locked around his forearm.
Megan, wait.
She didn't turn. His voice was already part of the past she had just closed. The reception hall's din faded to a muffled roar as she pushed through the heavy service door.
I did it. Now to disappear before anyone else finds the courage to follow.
The corridor stretched ahead, empty and quiet, lit by a single flickering sconce. From behind, the distant wail of a bride no one would remember fondly echoed and died. A rustle of silk and a soft voice stopped her. Patricia Hayes emerged from the shadows, breathless.
You delivered your blow beautifully, but there's one more truth you deserve to bury.
She leaned in, her lips nearly brushing Megan's ear.
He cheated on Stephanie too, with her maid of honor, last weekend.
Patricia pressed a small folded note into Megan's palm, then withdrew her hand like a torch passed. She stepped back into the reception, swallowed by the noise, leaving Megan alone with the paper. Megan unfolded the note. 5 words in elegant script. He cheated with the maid of honor last weekend.
So you couldn't even be faithful for 6 months, and you married her anyway.
She refolded the paper, slow and precise, and slid it into the inner pocket of her blazer. The corridor seemed brighter now, as if the last weight had turned to dust. She pushed through the back exit into the cool night. Her sedan gleamed under the parking lot lights. Inside the car, the silence was complete. She sat motionless for a long moment.
I could send these words to everyone, shred what's left of their marriage.
She pulled the note from her pocket and unfolded it again, the elegant script stark against the paper.
But that would mean I'm still living in their story.
A small, satisfied smile crossed her lips, the smile of someone who has already won. She tore the note once, then again. The sound was crisp and final. The pieces fell from her fingers onto the passenger seat, tiny confetti of a buried truth.
Some truths don't need a messenger. They find their own way.
She started the engine and pulled out of the lot, the vineyard silhouette shrinking in the rearview mirror. She coasted to a stop at a ridge overlooking the estate. The reception lights flickered like distant fireflies.
Look at them, already arguing. The fairy tale didn't even last an hour.
Through the ballroom windows, 2 figures gesticulated. Stephanie's arms sliced the air. Justin's hands covered his face. Megan watched without pity, without satisfaction. Just the quiet certainty of a storm that had passed. Her gaze dropped to the torn note scattered on the passenger seat. Confetti of a secret she'd never need.
She'll find out eventually. Affairs always surface. But it won't be because of me.
She turned the key. The engine purred back to life, and the headlights cut a path through the dark vineyard road. The car rolled forward, leaving the overlook behind. The vineyard rows blurred past like years. In the rearview mirror, the string lights of Belvedere winked once, then disappeared around a bend. Megan didn't look back. The road ahead was empty, and it was entirely hers. She pulled into her apartment complex just before midnight. The city lights blurred like a half-remembered dream. The elevator hummed. Her apartment door clicked open onto silence and familiar shadows. Megan slid the navy blazer from her shoulders and hung it in the closet with deliberate care. She faced the mirror. The woman looking back had laugh lines at the corners of her eyes.
There she is, the woman who didn't break.
She poured a glass of deep red wine and slid open the balcony door. The cool night air smelled of autumn. Below, the city hummed its quiet rhythm.
6 months ago, I thought my life ended, but I just needed to become the one holding the pen.
She took a slow sip. The wine tasted like closure. Then, for the first time since the bridal shower, she allowed herself a quiet, untethered laugh. The next morning, Megan drove back to Belvedere before the sun crested the hills. The estate belonged to her now, and she wanted to feel it. She parked near the empty ceremony site. The floral arch still stood, white petals scattered like fallen stars.
It's quiet now. No guests, no accusations, just vines and earth and me.
She walked between the rows of dormant grapevines, her boots leaving prints in the dew-soaked soil. The air smelled of ripening fruit and fresh rain. She inhaled the quiet ownership. Her fingers brushed the wet leaves, leaving trails of moisture.
This is no longer their wedding venue. It's my vineyard, my peace.
A bird chirped overhead, and she smiled, the first smile untainted by bitterness. She stopped at the edge of the property, looking out over the land that had witnessed her triumph and now offered her a new beginning. Then she turned back toward the estate house, ready to claim what was always meant to be hers. She reached the main gate and drew out her keychain, the keys Patrick had given her, now hers in more than name. The lock clicked with a satisfying finality, a sound that belonged only to her. The sun crested the hills, flooding the vineyard with gold. Morning dew sparkled on every leaf and petal. She stood at the threshold, no longer a guest at someone else's celebration, but the keeper of this place. Behind her, the wedding arch still held remnants of last night, now just a monument to a promise that had already broken. But she didn't look back at the arch. Her gaze was fixed ahead, on the rows of vines and the long, open horizon. Belvedere was more than a trophy. It was the ground she had chosen to stand on, and from this day forward, it would answer to no one else. She pulled the gate shut, the iron cool under her fingers. The road beyond was hers to walk. And as the morning warmed the earth, Megan Reeves was no longer the woman who was left at the bridal shower. She was the one who owned the ending.
A beautiful day for a new beginning.